So I've spent 3 of the last 12 months living out of this RV, and we've been seeing as many national parks as possible. It's been a beautiful thing, but I think it's about time we wrap this up and sell it. Like every other 25 to 35-year-old that watches too much of the news or social media, I decided to quit my job, pack up my life, and live in the camper. It's not everything that you would think it is. Look, I know what you're thinking. Why would you want to stop living in an RV or a van, live that digital nomad life? Well, it's not as ideal as you would think. So the reason that we decided to do this is that we were in a good stopping point in our life. My wife has a position where she can work remotely, and I am going to school remotely, which allows us to have this unforgettable experience. And we had some funds set aside so that we could buy this camper and travel around, because traveling gets very expensive with both gas and food, unless you're willing to cut some things out. One of the things that we had to cut out was essentially all of the amenities that are inside of this camper. So we bought water from Walmart. We didn't even use the propane to heat ourselves up. So we ended up traveling in the shoulder seasons around April, October. So spring and fall were much better in terms of traveling compared to different seasons like the summer where most people are out. Now this had its own advantage, because while we were traveling in the shoulder seasons and had to deal with a little bit cooler temperatures, it also allowed us to take our cats with and to not see as many people out when we were doing our hikes. Conversely, some of the routes, some of the roads, depending on where we were in the United States, were closed, and so we didn't get to see quite a lot of the parks that we really wanted to. Now we started by going up to the northwest, and I really liked seeing a lot of the national parks up in Washington. Northern California was beautiful, Idaho beautiful as always, with one small caveat. So when we were in Idaho, we actually had a breakdown of our suspension, which led to us being stranded for about 2 whole weeks. That and, a couple $1,000s later, we were actually able to continue on and see as many hot springs and beautiful mountains in that northern Rocky region of the United States. So it was rewarding and cool and great to spend a lot of time there. However, very expensive, very unfortunate, and a little bit scary in terms of not knowing what we were going to be able to do, especially with being locked out. So while the Northwest was extremely rewarding, we did have another incident that happened, and that was we were in northern Minnesota during the summer. So it was right when we were about to finish our first loop of the Northwest, and we had a horrible storm. And if you guys have never been in the middle of an RV in over 100-mile-an-hour winds, I would strongly not recommend it. Home Depot basically saved our lives because we were parked at one, but it can be extremely dangerous if you don't watch for weather patterns. So things that you take for granted, like being able to live in a house or an apartment where you have shelter from the weather, is definitely a consideration that you have to take, even if it means busting out and driving a couple 100 miles just to get out of the way of a potentially deadly storm. So while our Northwest trip was eventful and it was our first little loop, it was expensive, it was dangerous, but it taught us a lot about the things that we were going to have to live with and without when it came to doing this whole van life thing. So we stopped traveling during the summer because that was the on season. There's a ton of people that are doing things, and we decided instead of traveling during that, we could just lock in, put some work in, and make a little bit more money so that we could spend something during the fall when we were going to go out east. Going out east was pretty cool. There was a lot of history, but there was not nearly as much to see regarding national parks, and so we kind of had to cut that part a little bit short. There were some family events and things like that happened, but we do have some cool pictures from that region, but nothing special, nothing super remarkable out of the national parks that we went to out east. I really enjoyed going to the Southwest. The temperatures in the earlier part of the year we're talking about like April, were lows of about 40 degrees and highs when we got into Death Valley and like Phoenix, Arizona, of somewhere around 90 degrees. So it was manageable for the cats, it was manageable for us, and it really just allowed us to see a ton of cool things. I will say by the end of this trip, we had been out in the Southwest for about a month, and we were so ready to come home that we skipped a couple of national parks. There's just something that can be said about being at home where you feel like you can stay clean, you can get in your habits and routines. Guys, when it comes down to it, there is so much to be thankful for in terms of amenities and comforts that you just don't get an appreciation for until you've spent an extended period of time without them. So that's a little bit about what we did and why we did it. We just knew that we had the resources to do it, and we had the time to do it, and we knew that we're going to create memories that we're going to get to keep for the rest of our lives, which is a very special thing. When it comes to why we stopped, it is a little bit about resources, but it's also a little bit about the fact that we're just kind of done. We're ready to be in one spot for an extended period of time, and we're ready to travel still pretty frequently, but in a different way. So we already have some additional trips, and I'll go ahead and document those a little bit better. I didn't really get the idea to document this until I was halfway through it, and so I don't have a lot of video footage, which I got those memories for me, but didn't necessarily get them for everybody else. But I know that a lot of my family and friends are concerned about what I'm doing, so this is kind of my way to share it with as many people as possible. So going forward, I am going to do some fitness related content. So if that's something that you're interested in or anything to do with this travel, please leave me a comment below. Interact with me. I am looking to create a bit of a community here, and I know it's just the start, so these videos are more for me than for anybody else. But if you do have questions, especially regarding fitness, I am very passionate about it, to the point where I've gone through my undergrad, my graduate level schooling is all in exercise science. And one of the things that I've always promoted to people is that you should be using your fitness for something that fulfills your life, which is another reason why we did this van life trip. We would have never been able to do the hikes that we were going to do if we didn't invest in our health and fitness. And I want to set an example to all of my former clients, as well as anybody that decides to work with me in the future, as to why we decide to get fit. So if you have any questions regarding fitness, please leave a comment below. I will answer them in video style. I'll comment back to you. And I just want to create this community of people that are choosing to get fit, to get healthy, and then choosing to use that fitness to better their lives. Because so often I think people decide that they're going to get fit, or they get into this bodybuilding sphere, and bodybuilding is great and it has its purpose, but ultimately when it comes down to it, if you're not doing it for a reason and it's not making your life better because you're meeting new people, or because it's allowing you to have new experiences, do new things, then what's the point of the fitness? So again, leave me a comment below if you have anything. If you want to know anything else about van life, I know this was just kind of a bit of a splurt. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. So see you in the next one.